Okay, call the meeting of Community Preservation to order at 6:11. It's March 18th, 2024. Members present are myself, Gina Gasconi, Chair, Carlton Hunt, Vice Chair, Jeff Merriman, Maureen Menasian, and Pat Driscoll. Guests are Emily Williams from the Senior Center. The one thing on the agenda, as you know, was the Senior Center application. Carlton and I reached out to the Coalition for guidance because there were some things that on the application we knew definitely wouldn't be covered, such as the grill. We had questions about the lighting. We reached out to the Coalition and we did get guidance from Stuart Saginaw. I'm going to jump to his email. So if I'm going back and forth, I hope I don't cut somebody off. Okay. We sent him the whole everything. CPA money cannot be used to support activities. Okay. On building amenities. So let me read that section to you. Okay. I'm going to jump over that for a second. I'm just going to go down and order his email. CPA funds cannot support a senior center's activities, projects, or building amenities. I guess that's what I was just saying. Folks often inquire if landscaping outside areas of town buildings would qualify, such as land around the town hall, library, senior center, etc. The answer is generally no. Then he said he focused on the community guidance portion of the project because that seemed to be what we were dealing with now. He addressed even the concept of a community garden. He said, we aren't certain that the project is even a community garden. Community garden is a specific type of garden. It contains individual plots raised or in the ground that are rented out to anyone in the community who wants to grow vegetables for their own private consumption. Is that the plan for this project? Are the gardens going to be used exclusively by the senior center as part of their programming and mission to serve seniors? CPA cannot fund any expenses incurred by the senior center in carrying out their duties. So it would be important to clarify how this land would be used. Emily, can you answer that?
How the land will be used. So we've got the raised garden beds, which will be used by the public to grow the plant, the specimen of their choice. And we anticipate tomatoes and fruits and herbs to be consumed on the premises or taken home.
Okay. So they could actually still be used for like meals at the senior center? Or is it just for them?
If there's a volunteer that's interested in that, there's no programming set around this project.
Okay. Is it, you said it's open to everyone. Is it all ages? Like if a 25-year-old wants to go down, can they get a community garden?
If it's not already taken by a senior.
Okay. Then he goes on and says, well, a true community garden would be an eligible expense. The expense for that is only $5,200. None of the other expenses in the phase one application are for a community garden. They were for outdoor amenities directly related to the senior center building use and programs: patio, grills, lighting, benches, tables, bird cafes, chairs, arbor pavers. As we mentioned, CPA cannot pay for outdoor landscaping and improvements, which is basically kind of what this is. I'm trying to see where he put it. He said that I'm looking at notes too at the same time I'm looking at the email. The town, the senior center would need to protect the land, which is basically a deed restriction. So a deed restriction would have to be put on the property. Okay, he does talk about, we talked about amenities. So it sounds like, I'm just kind of scanning his email. Carlton, do you have anything to add? Well, I'm just scanning Stuart's email again.
Well, I've been looking at it as you've been reading it, but basically, again, it says supporting activities and projects and building amenities. So that raises a question there, project activity. You also mentioned that needs to be protected. And the question is it open to anyone? Typically, a community garden is rented for private food consumption, and that's probably a fairly strict statement. And you mentioned that most of the elements that they saw on the phase 1 plan, which is all that we asked them to look at, probably don't qualify. So that's what we wanted to talk a bit more if we didn't have this meeting in public discussion. So it's a bit of a challenge to figure out what we can fund and what we shouldn't, what we should fund, what we can fund, and what's the best way to go forward. That's really where we are.
Right. Now he's saying, while a true community garden would be an eligible expense, the expense for that is only $5,200. I'm not sure where that fits into like the cost of the planters. I don't think we had that. I did have something on the planters. Now, Emily, on the garden and the angels, a lot of things like, well, actually, it's a moot point now. Tables and benches, it says paid by your owner, but those are out. So, okay, I didn't print the price of the planters. I don't think we had that. Do you have the, because to me, that would be the only thing eligible. I mean, if you wanted to take the, I don't know if you already have the donation from the tree committee, if you still wanted to put your trees and things in there. Talking to Carlton on how Music Alley was funded, and like the arbor, I don't know what type of arbor you were looking at. The arbor for Music Alley was donated. There's a man on Plymouth Street. Somebody went to him and said, "This is what we need," and he made it.
That was Ashmont out on Plymouth Street, just at the Halifax border.
Okay. Let me hold on.
So while you're looking, one of the things that's the grills, are the grills actually part of the raised beds, the public garden, or are they just an amenity for the seniors?
Emily,
is that question directed to me?
Yes. I'm sorry, I forgot to direct it.
The grills are a part of the master plan as part of Melissa Desjardins' project. So is the question, are they an amenity or part of the project? They're part of the project.
But what will they be used for? They are obviously not used. If I read it right, it's a barbecue grill. And how does that fit into a community garden?
We were thinking people could plant, grow, and consume on the premises. So okay. I don't know how that's defined in the policy.
Right. It's basically the guidance we got was all these other things aren't eligible. And that's where, as Carlton has mentioned before, trying to do donations. I know Home Depot is great with donations, other places, and I don't know if you're still looking into grants. But I'm looking at, I don't think we have a set price for the beds. In my mind, the only thing that would be eligible are the beds themselves. The landscaping of the area to put the beds wouldn't be included. It would just be the beds. I'm looking for a price. I see the deep root raised beds 4 feet wide, $319.99 times 2. That's all I see. Once you're looking at like 6 and some, these say raised, but it looks like they're just raised, I don't know, like 12 inches off the ground.
That all of these are raised garden beds, and the landscaping was part of the project to make it safe for people who are in wheelchairs or use walkers or canes. That's why we included the landscape design, because this is considered a fully accessible community garden. And without the landscape flattening out the turf, so to speak, or making a curb cut, all kinds of different pieces as part of this. That's why we wanted to see if that's included in making something accessible.
Right. It makes sense to make it level. I mean, I even walk out in my yard. It's not level. I hate to see an older person. Of course, my mother made it around okay, but still. But my thought, and I'm going to ask the rest of the committee that's here, I tend to agree with Stuart that the only thing that would be eligible is the raised beds themselves, but I don't see a price for those. All I see is those 2. The attachment says 2 at $319.99. But there are a lot of things under equipment that was just a lump sum that said see attachment, and we couldn't find an attachment that went with it.
On the PowerPoint presentation under the schematic plan and cost, which is page 9, it lists out things individually. And we have 8 raised planters, which are ADA accessible. And that is including potting soil for vegetables, which is $5,120. And the AARP Foundation, the community garden grant that we received. So take the $5,120 and subtract $2,500 from that. And that's the remaining balance to purchase the rest of the raised garden beds.
Okay. What page were you on? I'm into your PowerPoint.
9. It's called schematic plan and cost.
Okay. I'm getting mixed up because the page numbers are all part of the big application.
I think you said page 9 on the PowerPoint, correct?
Right. But you can't go by the page numbers on the bottom because they're for the whole packet. Okay, I'm up to it. Okay, so
I think there's some issues here, and I'd like to hear a little bit more what given the little bit we've been able to give the other committee members, what are your thoughts about this?
Gina, can I speak?
Yep, go right ahead.
So I'm a little disappointed that we just found this out. I mean, this wasn't vetted earlier on at all.
No, we just found it out today. We reached out before Stuart's answer today.
So I thought this was basically, we're just waiting for that application. And then,
Pat's breaking up a little bit, but yeah, we're all disappointed with how this process has been slow.
Mm-hmm. And I actually probably said right at the start, but deemed that with the eligibility form that it was potentially, Pats were potentially eligible. I had, and I know I've mentioned to Emily before that the lights don't have anything to do with the community garden. The grills don't have anything to do with the community garden. The benches, the table. So I personally have had my doubts on a lot of it, but I thought at least the landscaping could be done.
so as far as the application goes, the majority of the application has been deemed by the state to be. Can you hear me now?
You're breaking up again.
So most of the application is ineligible.
Correct. And I think it's a great project, but when you look at it and it's called community garden, I think of community gardens as, like Pat, I don't know if you remember back at the years and years ago, probably not, you probably were too young. They used to have community gardens at the prison. East Bridgewater Senior Center has a huge community garden, and it's a big plot of land that's just divided up into sections that people plant their, whatever they plant, their veggies, their flowers.
So can you hear me better now?
Yep.
Yes.
So what we've been told, though, just so I'm clear, is that most of this application is ineligible for
Correct.
CPC funding. Is that correct?
Correct.
So even if we wanted to fund it, like I think some of us wanted to before we knew this, are you saying we can't because it would be in violation of the CPC agreement?
I would say it's not consistent with CPA intention.
Right. I mean, we can take it and we can pass this all on with the coalition's guidance to our town attorney to see what he thinks. If that's the way the committee wants to go. My thought was we could possibly fund the planters themselves, but as Emily pointed out, it needs to be landscaped to, for the seniors to get to it easily.
Would it make sense though? I mean, I would think instead of denying the application, why we have everything in front of us, does it make sense to take this information and submit it to Attorney Rollins and just ask him before our next meeting to give us an opinion?
Right.
And if his opinion is that if his opinion is that we can fund, if his opinion is that we can fund it, we can vote on it. If his opinion is we can't fund it, then that backs up what the CPC told us. We've been told twice.
Mm-hmm. And that's what I was saying.
I think it'd be great to do for the seniors, and I was excited about the project. I'm disappointed to hear that it's ineligible. So why don't we, before we act negatively on it, why don't we get an opinion from our town attorney just to confirm what we received?
Mm-hmm. That's good. That's what I was just saying too. We could pass it by Attorney Rollins. Jeff or
Maureen.
Maureen, thank you. I'm thinking who else is on here. I'm sorry, Maureen.
It's okay. I agree with Patrick. I think before we just dismiss it out of hand, we should make sure that we cannot fund any other part of it because it is quite the project, and the seniors were, as a senior, pleased to hear what they're going to do down there. And we should just get some other advice as to what would and would not. And on an aside, but if it's only the planters, then perhaps we should try to see if people donate some planters, put their name on it or something that was donated by them, rather than do a deed restriction on it on the senior center. It might be a lot easier if it turns out that nothing's covered except for $5,000 in planters. That might be a better way to go, as far as that goes, in my humble opinion, as I say.
Right. Okay, Jeff, your thoughts?
Yeah, I'm of like mind with everyone, with Pat and Maureen. I was just looking at the little guide chart, and I thought we were in the creating recreation box, which to me looked like it was okay for CPC. So I'm a little surprised learning all this today.
Right.
I like their idea.
Yeah. Stewart does talk about recreational use. Recreational use, active or passive, including but not limited to the use of land for community gardens, trails, non-commercial use, and adult sports, use of land as a park, playground, athletic field. Again, he does mention community gardens, but according to him, this doesn't fit the standard definition of a community garden.
Yeah, it does. Let me read a little bit more. What he said basically is, as you can see from the definition of recreational land above, all examples are land that is permanently dedicated to recreational uses. It is all open land with no buildings or structures or other incompatible uses on the land. As the Department of Revenue puts it, CPA is intended to promote outdoor recreational pursuits which take place on open land in relatively natural state. That's a qualifier that I hadn't fully appreciated. And what he says further, if it's this type of land, it has to be permanently protected. So I agree that we need to go and get a little bit tighter definition legally. And I'm certainly willing to work. I personally am willing to work with the town attorney, the coalition, and Emily and anybody else that wants to think about it.
Mm-hmm. Good, thank you. One of the things, and I can send off to you Stewart's email too. He says the senior center, okay, CPA can build parks on dedicated and restricted parkland, but it cannot fund new recreational areas that are on general municipal land, senior center, town hall, library, etc. A senior center is general municipal land and not a dedicated parkland. To dedicate a portion of this land to recreation, the town meeting vote, in our case would be town council, should contain a change of use or change of care and custody. I think we definitely need Jason for that. Other portion of this parcel you want to build recreation facilities with CPA funds. Yeah, I totally agree that before we can act on this, we have to pass it by our town attorney.
So I would move, I put a motion before you. I would move that we continue the discussion, essentially contacting the town attorney to get his opinion on some of these items.
Mm-hmm.
I'll second.
Was that a second?
Yes.
Yep, Maureen. Okay, move to continue discussion.
And I would add a friendly amendment to that as before the next meeting.
Okay, we can request it, but our next meeting is a week from Wednesday. We can request that Attorney Rollins act before then. We can try to force him on it, not force him, but strongly request that it be, but it might not be. And I hate to put the senior center off any more than it has been.
Well, the CPC has significant, Jana, the CPC has significant financial interest, and we need to do the correct thing with the town's money.
Right, I agree wholeheartedly. Okay, any discussion on the motion with the friendly amendment? Maureen, do you second the friendly amendment too?
Yes, definitely. Yep.
Okay. Discussion? Okay, a vote. I think Josh has left us. Roll call vote. Gina, yes. Carlton?
Yes.
Maureen?
Yes.
Jeff?
Yes.
Pat?
Yes.
Okay, great. We will get this over to the town attorney. And I think it has to go through the town manager, but we'll get it over. What Josh was saying before the meeting, that this wouldn't, even if we voted to recommend tonight, it wouldn't make the next week's council meeting because the person that writes up the orders is out. But hopefully by next week, we should be set. I wanted,
before we adjourn, I'd make sure, Emily, I'd still like to meet with you personally as we talked about earlier at 2 p.m. Was it tomorrow?
Yep. Okay.
Is that okay?
Yep, she's nodding yes.
Thank you.
Great. Okay. I want to thank everybody for jumping on the Zoom tonight. I wish we could have come to a vote or recommendation, but I think we need to do our due diligence on spending the money for what we've been charged to do. So
motion to adjourn.
Yep, that's what I was going to ask for.
I'll second it.
Okay. Roll call. Gina, yes. Carlton?
Yes.
I was going to say Emily. I'm just going across my rows. Maureen?
Yes.
Jeff?
Yes.
And Pat?
Yes.
Okay, great. We will see everybody a week from Wednesday.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Night, everyone.
Night. Have a good night.